concerns from the community as well. After speaking with quite a few commissioners, and even at the meeting, we expressed that this was an interim budget and that we would be reviewing these items. And true to our word, we're here today to get a little bit more information about the impacts of some of the proposals. As we know that we passed a budget for $149 million yesterday that cut the majority, if not all, of our outside agencies represented, as well as defunded internally our Parks and Beautification Department and our Recreation Department. So I would like to spend a little time today speaking about the impacts of those cuts, as well as entertain, if possible, the opportunity for amendment. As we know, the fiscal year ends July 1st or Saturday. So cuts to a lot of these outside agencies would go in effect as soon as Saturday. Monday, these places would not be reopening in some cases, or they will be depleting their fund balances until they're depleted to continue to operate. I would like to allow, so I just placed a list to anybody that would like to speak today. We will do a speakers list, so please come up and sign it, 3 minutes per. If you are an organization or member of the public who would like to speak, that opportunity will be given. So I'll give you a few minutes if you would like to speak. The list is available. I have quite a few amendments that I would like to make, but I would like to avoid preaching or dictating. So are there any members of the committee before, or the committee or the mayor behind me, that would like to make any statements to the crowd or in general? Yes.
Name? I just want to say how pleased I am to see so many people here. This is really a sad time for me. I have served for a long time, and I can truthfully say that I have never seen such a mean-spirited, cold, and callous budget as the one that was passed. When was that? It seems like a long time. Was it last night? When you sit through all of the budget hearings, and those of you who had these different agencies, and you explain to us how much time and effort you put into, and how much of your own personal time and resources you put into delivery of these services to our citizens, it just saddens me that we're at this point. But I think all of us are committed to continuing to work so that we come up with something that's equitable, something that spreads a little. There's a lot of pain to be spread around, but to spread it over as many different fronts as we possibly can, so that no one bears the full burden of this. And as I said last night, we are committed to going forward and staying on top of every financial everything that involves the finances of Macon-Bibb County. We've not done that as we should have over these last years, in the spirit of teamwork and, you know, sometimes just being outvoted on some things. But we are committed to going forward, making sure that we know everything that's going on financially. And I want to thank the chair and my colleagues on this committee for spending a lot of hours examining some things, coming up with some details that we did not know, and working to make sure that we know where everything is going forward, because that's what's been missing. I frankly want to hear from all of the different agencies, and I want those folks who are inclined to think that everybody pulls themselves up by bootstraps when everybody doesn't have bootstraps. I would like for you to tell the story of your organization, how you benefit every aspect of this community, and maybe that will soften their thinking on some things. Maybe not. I have confidence that we realize that we were elected to come and sit at the table and represent everybody, and I mean everybody. So we got a lot of bang for our buck out of these different organizations, and I'm prepared to support restoring funding to these agencies that have been cut. I don't think that we as a community can survive as we should if we maintain the budget as it is. So I'm glad that we were able, you, Mr. Chair, call this meeting, and I'm prepared to hear, and hopefully people can be convinced that we need to do something different today. So thank you all for being here, and I'm sorry, I'm a soft-hearted great grandmother and great-grandmother, and I just know what you all do in every department, and I know that you deserve to not be disrespected as you are being, and not having to feel like you've got to come and grovel and beg and plead to do the kinds of stuff that you do, being underpaid and understaffed. So I hope that you can convince some other people to understand that, so that we can go in a different direction with this budget. But thank you all for being here. And thank you for indulging me.
Thank you. Commissioner Sessions?
Like Ms. Lucas, I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here. The budget that was placed before us last night at the end of the meeting is mean-spirited, just like Ms. Lucas says. And I believe it was crafted in a way to inflame this community. You can't take money from paratransit or the library or a number of other outside agencies, which really aren't outside agencies. They're part and parcel of what we do. And the only reason that and I think I'm speaking for other members of the commission, actually voted for it was because our county attorney had told us that if we did not have something in place, and we needed 6 votes for that, if we did not have something in place, then we would be putting the county in legal jeopardy come Sunday. We have something now in place, and that issue of legal jeopardy is no longer an issue that's on the table. But I just want to say on my behalf, and I think on behalf of the rest of the commission, that we really had no part in the zeroing out of the figures that were presented to us yesterday. All of that, came out of the mayor's office. And, you know, I think this is not only a mean-spirited budget, but it's a really stupid budget. Beyond that. And it was simply the fact that we needed something in place to limit our legal exposure that I think garnered the 6 votes necessary to put it in place. So I think we have some work to do. I do think 149 million is a realistic figure, because that is indeed what we, you know, do take in without a tax increase. And I think we need to really kind of figure out ways we might be able to work within that framework. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think that the comments that have been made thus far need a little bit of clarification, and so I would go to the legal side of this, and saying some budget, any budget, is better than no budget. And I said that last night. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that this is a great budget. I'm not going to try to do that. But the situation that we were in, failing to pass a budget, some budget, last night, would have put us in legal jeopardy as of July the 1st. So at least by passing a budget, we kept the city open, and we have a document that we can amend. And I look forward to working with the commissioners to find a way, if possible, to shoehorn everything that we want to do into $149 million. We've been trying to do that individually and collectively for the past 6 months, starting with the financial forecast at the retreat in Athens, and budgets that were crafted and presented 6 weeks ago, and the work of the Operations and Finance Committee. So I look forward and welcome any suggestions as to how we can try to do everything that we want to do and feel like we need to do as a community, to be seen as progressive, open, welcoming, inclined to education and quality of life issues and public parks and recreation, all that we want to do, and still try to get it done within the amount of money that we received last year, that 149 figure. So I look forward, and I want to say that I think that while it may be unpopular to have passed such a budget, at least it allows us to continue to work on a budget and to amend it and modify it. So look forward to your comment. Look forward to the wisdom of the commissioners as to how they wish to do, but I really am anxious to do that. And I can certainly say to you, I can certainly promise you, it was not, quote unquote, crafted in a mean-spirited way or designed to inflame this community any more so than any cut to any department would inflame people, whether it's sanitation or recreation or the sheriff's office or the fire department or the tax commissioner's office or the court system, anybody else. It all hurts. It all hurts. So I can assure you that it was not mean-spirited. I can assure you it was not, quote-unquote, crafted with a design to inflame the public. But I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Look over it. Commissioner Tillman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to personally thank the 4 commissioners that make up the Operation and Finance Committee. You all had, some of y'all had 24-hour notice. Some of y'all had a shorter notice than that. And some of us have been probably on the phone half the night and this morning, and even talking to a commissioner while they were parked outside a funeral. So I just want to personally thank all of y'all, because all of y'all are here to correct what we put in place last night, which was something that this community cannot stand for. So thank y'all all for being here, and do not look at the other commissioners that may not be here, because we did only give everybody a 24-hour notice, and it's a testament of this full commission body of this operation of finance that are here. So thank y'all really for being here and coming together to do this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I know I have a speakers list, but I wanted to start in a document that I just passed out to the commissioners. Reads budget a la carte. Right now, we know that our base budget that is passed is $149 million, and that is a zero rate meal increase. Oh, I'm sorry. You. I'll yield. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Just briefly, the budget we passed last night, there it goes, was an interim budget, only to be able to say we have a budget. $149 million is not going to get it. And my latest budget proposal calls for restoring funds to MTA, slightly even more than they had, $24,000, and also the public library, slightly less. So those things are critical. That was an interim budget. I'm not in favor of that budget. It was simply to get us in a place where we can say we have a budget, and then we've got to fix the mess we're in. Thank you.
All right. So, as stated, right now our base budget is 149. No millage rate increase is anticipated. So, understanding that when we talk about amendments that restore agencies or funding, that also correlates with a millage rate increase. So that is the cost of doing business for our county right now. And I would like to start our conversation with our two internal departments. If I could, Ms. Moore and Mr. Hubbard, I have a few questions that can bring clarity to what the impacts will be. Yes, sir. I hear you.
The folks that signed up,
Yes, sir.
are we going to let them speak first?
When we get to that point on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you. So, my first question, parks and beautification and parks and recreation. From an internal standpoint, what are the impacts? How if we pass the budget that included, we passed that budget, what are the plans for Monday or the next 30 days?
As of right now, Mr. Chairman, Parks and Recreation has a number of summer camps going on that I believe end third week of July. Say again? The 13th? 13th of July. So at this time, there's no immediate changes for that schedule. And meeting with the director, that schedule is to meet with him starting on Monday to talk about the reduction of services and programs, and then a decision has to be made as to how far we will be talking about zeroing out that department, whether it's to go into a skeleton crew or alternate days, like these 3 are open Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Point of clarity. My understanding is, like, after 30 days, there's zero funding for that department.
That is
there's
correct.
There's no operation. We can't pay Georgia Power. We can't keep the lights on. There's no salaries. So how will skeleton work?
That is part of the conversation. Come back to you with a plan as to what the final look of recreation would be. You are correct. Currently in the budget is only enough to pay for the 30 to 40 days that's required by law to do the RIF policy. But
and just so I understand, my understanding, those departments, Parks and Beautification and Parks and Recreation, are roughly $6.8 million collectively, and I'm rounding.
like 3.5 and 1.7, and then Bowden Golf Course, 300,000. $3.5, 1.7,
I was on the
300,000.
So recreation is worth $4 million by itself, isn't it? Plus. Last year,
What's the true number? I didn't have the number in front of me.
Down at the bottom. 4. Where is it?
All right, parks and beautification, 2.7, recreation 4.5. You're correct. And then Bowden, roughly about 3. But bottom line is, we understand the need for recreation in this community. And so in crafting the 149 budget, as I've explained to you several commissioners, we had a guideline that we had to go by is what was deemed essential services, public safety, and then from there, debt, then from there, other legal responsibilities, and that left us with a number that we had to try to piece together.
I understand. So $6.8 million in total spend. How many people is that?
102.
102 full-time?
Yes, sir.
How many part-times? 60?
6.
Like, how many lifeguards are at Parks and? I mean, for this current fiscal year, how many part-time employees did we pay? I know it's 23 lifeguards. Yeah, so thinking about it like that, though, how many part-time through both of those departments? That's 36 plus 3. Okay. And has anybody done the coaches that coach in those leagues, the umpires and folks that teach Zumba classes?
That's part of the plan that we would start crafting to figure out either all or go to a skeleton. It could be as much as just having buildings open on a rotating schedule, or closing the buildings permanently and then just having people assigned to go by to do the security checks on them.
All right, and my understanding, $6.8 million, and I'm also passed out a little dollar to meal rate cheat sheet, would equate to $1.7 million in 1.7 meals.
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt just a half second?
Yes.
I think I understood them to say that recreation was 4.5 million. Is that right, Dr. Moffitt?
Yes, sir. 4.61.
At
4.561.
Okay, 4.5, and parks and beautification was 2.7.
2.733.
And Bowden was 600,000.
300,000.
300,000.
Yes, sir.
If it's
7.5.
If it's 300,000, by my math, you come up with 7.8. Am I wrong? Can somebody double check my math? Is that 6.8 or 7.8? 5 and 7, 12, 15. 5, 2, 7. Looks to me like it's 7, 8.
Okay. All right. So that was
not 6, 8.
All right.
I'm just trying to.
So at that point, it would be equivalent to 1.95 mils.
If that's the sheet I gave you earlier, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That's what we're up against. If there's a desire to restore parks and beautification and park and recreation in full, it would cost, what are we saying, 1.95 mils.
That's right. For any expenditure you add on, we must add on revenue to stay within a balanced budget. Yes, sir.
I understand what I'm saying there. Does it need to be explained any further? We understand? All right. On the speakers list today, thank you, sir. On the speakers list today, was anybody available from Parks and Recreation or wanting to speak on Parks and Recreation? I see you, Mr. Hudson. And Ms. Morgan. So Hudson, then Morgan. Yes. 3 minutes.
Well, I'm not really here to just represent Parks and Recreation, but just Macon, period. I came up in Parks and Recreation, and now I got the privilege of working with Parks and Recreation, and I'm passionate about the job that we do. We really like saving and changing lives, especially when it comes to the youth. I speak on behalf of Bloomfield Community Center. The Bloomfield area already has a negative connotation, and we have a lot of positive things going on in Bloomfield Community Center. All our kids that come up there walk. They come by choice. Their parents don't bring them up there. We got programs set in place, drone programs where I'm teaching a free drone class to the community. We got basketball programs, a Boys to Men program, a mentoring program. I mean, it's just limitless to the amount of stuff we do. We have adaptive program come in. We have senior citizens come in, Zumba classes. We are a community center for the whole community, not just one single entity. So, I mean, it's just kind of crazy, just being honest. There's nothing else I can really say about it. For the people that work in Parks and Recreation, to do that job, you have to care. I worked in Bibb County school system, same thing. You have to have a passion for that job. It's not for the money. So the people that are invested in that job care about it. So to see this budget come up, it's just crazy. It's just ludicrous. There's nothing else I can say.
Thank you, sir. You fine. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Morgan. I want to ditto everything that young man just said. I personally have a stake in this. My husband works at the Rosa Jackson Recreation Center. He grew up in that recreation center. Not many people can say that. He grew up right behind that center. That center, participating in that center as a young boy saved his life. So if you all want to cut programs such as that, then you may as well add the money to the court system, because that's where it's going. These children, we are failing our children, and if you cut this out, as I don't know who said it was stupid, because it is stupid. And how can you vote for something that's stupid? If it took y'all staying here all night, I don't care. You were voted on by the constituents to do what's right for your area. You are not doing what's right for your area to cut out programs that deal with our children, our senior citizens, our poor. I have spent so much time at Rosa Jackson. I wrote one of the first reviews for Rosa Jackson Center. Mr. Schlesinger, no, I have his cell phone. I called, I texted, I bugged him to death. Do something. We had no phones. We had no this. We had no that. You put these things in place. You have all these beautiful centers. That one out in South Bibb, $10 million. You're going to close the door? Really? What kind of sense does that make? But not just that. Buses? So what are you trying to do? Shut us down? Macon already has a bad reputation. We don't need it worse. We're the laughing stocks. It's all over Facebook. People are talking about us as if we don't exist. It's wrong. So whatever y'all need to do to find out where the money was misappropriated, maybe, or find out what happened or what we need to do, then you know what? We need to do it. It needs to be done. So if it takes staying here all night, staying here all week, I don't care. You're being paid. Do it. So we need something done. Because once again, if you cut these programs out, you may as well march all those children straight to jail.
Thank you. Are there any other members? I see you, Dr. Jackson. Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm late. I don't know what's going on, but I know what I'm hearing in the news. But from a standpoint of not recreation, but everything, how did we get to this point? I remember when we started with the consolidation, and I think from the State Department, they said it would take 5 years, and I think you guys have tried to do it in 2 years, and want to be something special. But from an old saying on Gooma Power, I should make a citizen arrest. Because collectively, as a whole, not the ones who's just been voted in, but the ones who's here, y'all done a poor job of managing. Council, commissioners, you guys sit and voted on this and got us in this situation, and now you have to get us out of it. Now, what's the solution? We have to come up with a solution. Now, we can point fingers here and there, but we at this point now that it has to be settled. Now, do we raise taxes? Some of you all with the constituents that you have in your area don't want that done, but looks like that's what's going to have to be done. Us as taxpayers, that's the only way we're going to get out of this. You know, not coming here to be on the commissioner's side, the mayor's side, the people's side, but it is what it is. We're here, we're at this point, now we have to get out of it. But you guys have done a bad job of mismanagement. I'm not saying mismanagement the money, but in judgment, you've done an awful job. Now we got to correct it. And like everybody said about Parks and Rec, I deal with kids. I know what it's going to do. You can put a program right across the street from my program, and you still have 100, 200 kids in it. And we just can't put these kids out there. And we're talking about cutting buses out. You know, this is like overnight for all those people who's going to be dependent on that. So somehow, some way, we have to manage this for the next 30 days till you guys work it out. You just can't cut these things off at the neck right now. Thank you.
As a matter of fairness and equality at the mic, are there anyone that would like to speak in favor of not having a recreation department? So, again, I think the decision before us as commissioners is the cost of recreation and parks of beautification is 1.95 mils. Legal, please give me a little bit. If I wanted to make an amendment at this time, it would be just to the committee. If I wanted to make an amendment to this time, it would be just to the committee, and it would still need to be voted. The soon as anything that could actually impact the total budget would be Tuesday, if I'm thinking of process correct. No, please enlighten me as to what you see our process to be going forward.
We advertised the meeting that occurred on Thursday. So technically, if you all wanted to add something to pre-commission meeting on Tuesday, you can do that because we've advertised the fact that you all were going to try and adopt a budget. In adopting the budget with what you've just proposed, you're indicating a millage rate increase, which means that you will still have to get the 6 votes of the commission in order to get that approved.
Yes, sir.
Let's be clear, regardless of what we do, if we decide to do a millage rate, we still have until August. So they could still enact the amendments. The meeting is Tuesday. We can add it to the agenda. We can suspend the rules, add it to the agenda. Regardless, we still have until August to do the millage rate. So them making the amendments does not affect going forward with the millage rate if we have to vote for that and get the 6, 7, 8, 9 votes between now and August.
No, it does impact it immediately because in order to pass the budget, you have to pass a balanced budget. And in this case, the balanced budget requires that you have your expenses offset by your revenues. You're offsetting it properly because what you're indicating is a millage rate increase, which is perfectly fine. However, that's resulting in a millage rate increase as the basis for your budget adjustment. So you do have to have 6 votes in order to pass that. That's the budget.
I understand the 6 votes, but the millage rate would still have to be voted on or go into effect in August. What happens in August with the millage rate? Help me with that and clarify that one for me.
All right. Are you asking what's the process that you all have to follow in order to adopt a millage rate increase?
Right.
We would have to have 3 public hearings.
Between now and August?
Right, you'd have to have the 3 public hearings.
Right.
Those need to be advertised so that the public is aware when those are taking place. At least one of those has to take place between the hours of, I believe it's 5 and 6 p.m. so that people who have to work have the opportunity to also attend one of those hearings. And then you have to have your vote.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So are you asking us?
Yes, at this time, I'm asking the committee, and I'll make it in the form of a motion, to accept an amendment to the 2019 fiscal year budget to include recreation and parks beautification fully funded at 7.8 million and new expenses, and to increase the millage rate by 1.95.
I would second that.
So that motion has been properly made and second. Are there any further discussion, questions, or concerns?
Discussion would be, what are the amounts?
So the 7.8 is based off of 4.5 million for recreation and 2.7 for parks and beautification, and that 300,000 for Bowden Golf Course.
And those are all current figures.
Yes, that would be restoring them to their 2018 spend, if I'm correct. And I'm looking, I see Sharita, so yes.
Okay.
Further questions, comments, or concerns? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Again, this is just 4 votes of the Operations and Finance Committee. It would still need to go before the full body. But right now, that's what we're planning to discuss further on Tuesday. I would like to move to the next item on my list, the Transit Authority and the paratransit systems. Many of you all of us commissioners received a letter from the Transit Authority. Is Mr. Brad Wilson or any member of their board here today? As unfortunate, they sent a letter making it known, and many of you may have already seen the news, but they do not have a significant amount of fund balance. According to this letter, and effective July 1st or Saturday, approximately 3,000 citizens who depend on public transportation on a daily basis would see that service stopped. We're providing those citizens, as well as the 72 people who are employed there, with almost a day's notice that service is concluding. And that is just for the transit. There are 140 dialysis patients that use this service 3 days a week to get to their doctors. The Transit Authority has about $400,000 in their reserves that they will spend in less than a month on that service. They are committed until they run to $0 to continue that service. But if we make no change, again, that is 140 dialysis patients that depend on us to stay alive. The Transit Authority in total is worth $2.75 million, or 0.7 mils. Anybody? That's good.
Well, that was your 2015 figures on MTA.
Correct. Yes.
I'm not on this committee, but I need to ask a question about the Transit Authority. It's my understanding they're going to stop tomorrow at 6 o'clock running the buses, and also
Saturday, yes, sir,
the
July.
paratransit is also going to stop tomorrow. Also, those individuals need to get to doctor's offices and hospitals will not be able to do so. It's also my understanding that we owe them X amount of dollars before our yearly goes out. Is there any way we can help them with any monies that we have, Mr. Mayor?
And I know you asked the mayor, and I'll
Well,
yield.
I mean, maybe I think he can authorize with us to get the money, couldn't he?
Well, again, our budget that we passed yesterday is zero. So I think the way that, and sadly, the soonest that we can do something is Tuesday, if I'm understanding our legal opinion correctly, that Tuesday is our day, but Saturday, is the beginning of the fiscal year, which is, I think you'll find that is the problem for the majority of these outside agencies. But again, you are correct,
I'm looking at health and welfare, Mr. Chairman.
sir. Yesterday, we did not fund it. Today, I would like to make a motion to restore their funding.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. But again, unless legal has and again, I'll defer and I yield to make it happen quicker, because it is not my intent, or in no way do I want this service to stop for a day. So yes, is there a way that we can do this?
Unfortunately, with the budget that's been approved as an interim budget, there is no funding in that current budget that would allow you to do that at this time, which would require that you all prepare a budget that would include that, and then you would have to get 6 votes.
All right, and just to the second part of that question, there is some discussion between the Transit Authority and Macon-Bibb County. The county has a position that they owe us $500,000. The Transit Authority has a position, actually, they have and it's on this page, that $470,686 is owed to them. Either way, both governments or both agencies do not have the money. I mean, they can't pay us and we can't pay them. Is the current situation from how I see it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
We did get a letter today, and that may be the letter that you're looking at, because I think in addition to the copy that came to me, a copy was delivered to each of the commissioners, making a demand for the money that has accrued to the Transit Authority from past years, is my understanding of it. I have asked the county attorney's office to prepare an ordinance that would pay that, because after discussions on the phone this morning between Dr. Moffitt and the executive director of the Transit Authority, he indicated that if he got this money, he could use it to keep the transit running on an emergency basis. So we're going to have this ordinance prepared and hopefully ready for pre-commission on Tuesday night, hopefully ready for pre-commission, and then depending on the vote of the commission as to whether, because it would come out of, I suppose, last year. I don't know whether it come out of last year's budget or this year's budget. But if it comes out of last year's budget, there's no money other than take it out of fund balance, and I don't think anybody wants to see us do that. So then it would be a matter of trying to find the funding, but that'll be up to the commission. It's not something that I can just do arbitrarily, and I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I can't. I'm just what I'm doing is preparing an ordinance to bring it before the commission at the earliest point in time, which will be next Tuesday.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Just for clarity, the oldest is 2 payments, one for 255 and one for 200. The 255, which is occurred in, you know the word, in this budget, in this last year's budget. Yes. So the payment of 255 is already accounted for in this budget.
On the FY18 budget.
Yes.
We just need to cut them a check that we hadn't cut them yet.
But that has to be approved by commissions to appropriate it.
Okay.
I still want to say, now, I know we're in this mess. That's why I say you don't just go ahead and approve something just to get something out of the way. I would like to have found out what would happen if we didn't approve this mess. I didn't vote for it, but if we had not approved it. However, we're in a situation, we all know we want the transit system to operate. That's just a given. We just cannot. So they've got us in a place, by they I mean the Transit Authority, but we know that over time we were supposed to be taking a long, hard look at the Transit Authority, because they have not acted in good faith over these last few years. They ended up getting a director that nobody knows how the director got in place. We still don't know. We need to be finding out. There was a committee that was set up. Mr. Chair, I think you were a part of that. Have y'all been meeting to look at the transit authority and make sure they're not just concentrating on electric buses and giving free rides to bicyclists, and but they're concentrating on those riders that depend on the transit system for getting to work and getting to church or whatever it is. Has that committee?
Yes, we've met 3 times. The meetings have been interesting, but we have met. A large part of our meetings have been centered around stopping them from being an outside agent, merging them completely with the county, and those have been somewhat contentious. But yeah, we have meeting, we have talked, and we will continue to do so.
Well, I think we're finding out a lot of stuff, and I know there has been a desire to rein in the transit authority and have more control over what they're doing. They do have a separate board, and I think that this committee that's been working needs to speed it up, because the transit authority came to us several years ago, asked us, told them that we owed them $255,000 more dollars. That was so that they would have enough money in the bank to fulfill a requirement as far as their borrowing ability, which is not our place to do for them. And then last year they came back and asked us for another $350,000. Is that the correct? Yeah. And I questioned at that time why they were coming back. Didn't they owe us the money from a previous year? And so that was never answered. And the thing that I got when I asked about the fund balance, which at that time I was told was $800,000. I don't know where how it dwindled down at this particular time, but I was told, and upon further questioning, I was told by the director down there that I shouldn't be asking those kinds of questions. So, that's disrespect. That's a total disregard for us as the funding authority. They work for the people, and we represent the people. Now we're over a barrel here. We have citizens who need the transit system. We have dialysis patients who depend on paratransit to get back and forth to their dialysis treatment. So they kind of got us by the whatever they have us by. But going forward, we have got to pin them down. We have got to insist that they account for the money that they are spending and whether they're giving the kind of service to the people that they're supposed to be giving, and not just going out on a whim with electric buses that are costing millions, several $1 million and all of that. And then they came back to us and asked for another, $40,000? Was it another $40,000 for the charging stations? See, that kind of stuff we need to get a handle on. And so if our internal auditing function can kind of help that committee to get a handle on what's going on with transit, we certainly would appreciate it. I personally would appreciate it. And if I'm wrong on some things, then, it will be shown. But if I'm right, somebody's got some splaining to do. And so I think we're at that point. And so it's my understanding that there's a tri-party agreement. Would you kind of tell us how that kind of boxes us in on some of this stuff and what we need to do to change that so we don't continue having them to come to us and insult us and then ask us for money that they never pay back?
And so a large part of the meetings that me and Ms. Moore was in on, a large part of what I say is contention. You sent me into a meeting with the organization who felt as though they were owed money, and we don't understand why. So a large part of that was them explaining to us their argument for why they're owed $500,000. A lot of that has to do with this bi-party agreement. It used to be tri-party. It was the county, the city and the federal government split the fees. Now, when we consolidated, it just became the county, so bi-party at that point. And it goes to the fund balance. There is a policy that they should maintain a 45-day working capital. And in order for them to do that each year, they need about $200,000. And so what's happening is they're putting the IOU, for lack of a better word, on their books. And though the $500,000 or that they're claiming is IOU from the government plus the actual $300,000 that they got cash to make the $800,000. But since we haven't paid, so now it's kind of where the rubber meets the road. The 800 is really only 300,000 worth of liquid because no one has ever given them the 500. And yeah.
Wow, yeah, no, I would agree with that. But I think that what they're asking specifically today is because they have seen a budget where they have $0 starting next week. Had they been able to get a check from us for the money that we have not changed the agreement on, so we owe and is on their books, they might have been able to continue. We're just not at a place where we can write the check until after we do the ordinance on Tuesday to agree that everybody wants to pay that. Because up to this point, every time we brought the ordinance forward, we didn't want to because we wanted to change the agreement to say maybe you only have 30 days of cash on hand. But now it is kind of a cash flow compacted by the fact that there's not anything saying they get paid on Monday. So for purposes of this conversation, I think whatever you all want to do as a committee to move forward in saying you are looking to seek to appropriate funds will help. But I don't think there's anything we can do, correct, Crystal, to get a ordinance and check until Tuesday.
Okay. And I see Mr. Tillman. I heard you.
According to the public, this government has mismanaged money. According to the internal auditor, many folks have mismanaged money. So I would say at this point, let's give them the money. I'll be glad to start the process of an ordinance to call it Macon-Bibb Transit Authority and take it over. But just for the sake of let's move on, give them the money, and let's take it over with an ordinance. And I asked the county manager to start looking at the process because we do appoint all the members.
I have a compromise
Yes.
that our finance office has offered, that because it's been over 2 fiscal years, that original 255 is actually already on our books that they held as a liability that we might have to pay. So if we wanted to do 255, according to finance, we could at least do the 255.
Okay.
Okay,
But-
whatever gets us
So
out of this.
to get us refocused though, currently on the motion that was seconded and what we've been talking about is a 2.75 increase to the paratransit and transit authority line items for the purposes of fully funding our transit authority throughout the year. That would be 0.7, a rate increase of 0.7 mils if we wanted to continue to have a transit authority this year. If we only give them the 250 or the 500 that we owe them, that is enough for 800,000, which is enough for them to work for 30 more days, which they legally need to do. There's 72 people, and anytime you're over a 50-person staff, you just can't lay people off in one day. So if you wanted to just close the transit authority, the 800,000 deal, whether or not it's owed to them or not, just to keep us from getting sued is something you got to do anyway. But again, I'm asking that we continue to run our buses throughout the year and fully fund them at 2.7. Is there anybody who would like to speak to the actual amendment?
I would.
Yes, sir.
They were funded $2,316,500 last year, and that's what I think is
Say
appropriate.
2.3?
Yes, sir. $2,316,500, and that's what I think is appropriate.
And is that includes paratransit? Just so I'm sure.
Looks like it does.
It does.
It does?
That's what they were funded last year. Let's fund them at the same amount.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
That was an amendment. Does it have a second? Somebody second. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I don't know. You better double check these figures as well, because the amount of money that was earmarked may not include the balance that we still owe. They say we still owe. So that's, I mean, to fund them at the same rate they did last year, it doesn't make them whole, because they continue to say, because we always fund them at the end of the year for the actual deficit that they've got between fare box revenues, federal subsidy revenues, and we provide the difference. No, we try to make an educated guess at the first of the year so that we can pay them something throughout the year and give them operating, but we're always trying to make it up at the end of the year, and that's kind of where we are. And then we were talking about whether or not we wanted to fund them enough to have 45 days of working capital or 30 days worth of working capital, and that's kind of where the negotiations were and why we hadn't paid them at this point.
I think they knew we was gonna have this meeting. I mean, we sit here and we can advocate for them all day. But I mean, if somebody wanna get the attorney up here or something, or we just gonna move on and fund them at what the committee today, Mr. Mayor, I'm here, I'm gonna follow the committee's request, and we can deal with it at another point. The committee has to have the information. The attorney is not here, no member is here to represent them, so we have to go on the numbers that we have in front of us from previous year, unless Ms. Moore is gonna share something different.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask, just so we're clear, our intent is to fund them at the same level from 2018. That total number for Transit Authority and Paratransit would be 23165.
231.
And that is, looking at,
Your amendment?
that was the amendment, so, matter of fact, I accept that as a friendly amendment, or matter of fact, let's just vote. 2.3,
165.
In 316,500. This year.
about 0.55 mils. So the amendment is to fund the Transit Authority and Paratransit at 2.3 million for FY18, and to increase the millage rate by 0.55 to offset those expenses. That sounds good,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Jones?
Oh.
Based on the chart you have, if you do it at 0.55, then you're gonna be short.
I can't do math today. What number am I looking? I'm looking for 2.3, right? Oh,
Well,
okay, so
and the
0.6.
estimated value of a 0.55 mil is 2.248.
Then 0.6 is 2.453. Who would like to be exact, or? Yeah. 5.7, okay. All right, so 0.57 mils, 2.3 million for Transit Authority, Paratransit. I haven't asked, is anybody speaking in opposition to this bill, to this amendment? Your time is now. There being none, any further discussion? 2.316, which equates to 0.57 mils. That makes sense to everybody?
Yes.
All right, again, any further discussion? Points of clarity? There being none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? This motion also carries. X. So, I'd like to move on, and I'm jumping down to the bottom. But health impacts, the health department, behavioral health, and Navicent. We've also discussed removing these agencies from our budget as well. Are there any members in the audience today from any of those organizations that would? I see someone standing.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name's Anita Barkin. I'm the Deputy Director for the North Central Health District, and I have with me Beverlyn Ming, who is the Administrator for the Macon-Bibb Health Department. The Health Department provides a number of services, critical services, to individuals who are uninsured and underinsured. We provide services for child health, immunizations to keep our community safe. We have environmental health services, that check pools for safety and food establishments for safety. Public health is a preventative service that ensures that our community is held harmless from preventable disease. If we do not receive any funding from the county government, that amount will be subtracted from our grant and aid from the state. So, and we have already lost money from the state. We were cut because Macon-Bibb lost population. So we have lost money from the state already. If this happens, we will lose the money. The money will be that you would normally allocate to us, which is to the tune of about over $374,000, will be subtracted from what we get for the state next year on top of the cut we've already absorbed. You're talking about affecting the health and welfare of the neediest members of our community. So I'm here to advocate for public health, and we're going to ask you to restore $680,000 in your budget to support public health. But on a broader front, I want to address another issue, and we rank 146 out of 159 counties in Georgia in terms of health outcomes. The health of a community is dependent on more than health services. The health of a community is dependent on a thing we call social determinants of health. And those include income, education, transportation, and parks and recreation. These things contribute to the quality of life and longevity. How long you live is dependent upon these factors. So when you cut jobs, when you cut budgets, there's a ripple effect. So it's not just about the 101 people that would lose their jobs as a result of these cuts. Those people don't have money to spend at your restaurants or other venues in the city or your grocery stores. So those businesses lose money as well. Businesses go out of business as a result, and new businesses don't move in. So there's a double whammy there. Education, health is dependent on education, good education. You lose your library system, you lose your arts. The museums, the libraries, these things enrich our children and put them on a positive trajectory to become a productive, educated citizen. When you lose transportation, as you've already talked about, the poorest of our community cannot access the public health department or any other provider. When you talk about parks and recreation, what's one of the number one problems we have in Georgia and in this district is obesity. And our children are becoming more and more obese. And what does that lead to? That leads to hypertension, cardiovascular disease, diabetes. How do we tell children and their parents and adults in general that they should be exercising and losing weight when we won't have safe spaces to do that in? One of the things that, and I recently made a comment about how proud I am to be a part of a community that has provided such beautiful recreational spaces so that from a public health standpoint, we can promote physical activity and say, and here are all the places in Macon-Bibb County you can go to do that. So take that away, and what do we have? So I heard earlier that there were lots of people who came to these meetings earlier and said they didn't want a tax increase. And, you know, nobody wants to take money out of their pocket, right? Everybody wants to preserve it for their own purposes. But it's a short-sighted argument. I am a homeowner in Macon, and I know that if all of this happens, that the quality of my community decreases, my property value decreases, crime goes up, I am less safe. For anyone who would stand before you and tell you they don't want a tax increase because I don't go to the public health department for my care, I don't use public transportation, I don't go to the library because they have the resources to seek these things privately, are very foolish, because you live in a community, you are affected by everything that happens in that community. It is a very short-sighted way of looking at this. And as commissioners, as people who are educated about the ramifications of these actions, as public health professionals, as the folks in this room who work in all of these areas, parks and recreation, library, the arts, we understand the impacts this has on a community. It is our job to educate people about how foolhardy it is to not pay a little more in taxes, because the loss on the other end will be much greater from a personal standpoint. If I can't sell my home, if my home is devalued because my community is in a state of disarray and no one wants to move here and businesses don't come here, I lose. I lose big time. I lose more than $99 a year. So, as a public health professional, I will tell you, all of these things that have been cut from this budget are detrimental to the health of this community, the health of everyone in this community, children and adults alike. On a personal level, I will tell you that I don't care if you raise my taxes, because I'm willing to pay to invest in my community, to have a healthier community, to have children to be able to access the wonderful parks and recreation that we have here. And it is your job to sell it to your constituency that from a business standpoint, this is the better option. This makes business sense. Make the business case for it, because people are looking at this in a very short-sighted way. And as public servants, it's your obligation to do this. Beverlyn, I don't know if you want to add anything to what I had to say.
No, I just wanted to say we are passionate about providing the services to the community here. And we know that these services that we provide, they are vital to this community. And physical health, working with the rec center, getting our clients, our community out, exercising, providing that care in the health department, that's what we are here for. We understand that there may be some cuts, but we're asking, if at all means, don't cut us. But if you have to, we do understand, but not so drastic. So we just thank you for listening to us today.
Thank you for listening, and not only restoring our budget, but as I said, the folks in this room representing other areas that contribute to the welfare of the community, we would ask you to do something for them as well. Because the health of our people depend on what happens to the rest of these organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your words. That was powerful. Your stance of you're willing to contribute more because you realize that the community needs it at this time. To me, that's true patriotism versus the willingness that I'm seeing to let things burn and go undesired. I'm not understanding what that is. So I thank you for your leadership. I have a couple of questions. When it comes to impacts of not receiving this money, Are those dollars used for the direct services for citizens, or are these salaries for employees that provide services?
Well, it's used for direct services that we provide to the community.
And just in terms of numbers, you serve annually X number of citizens in what type of capacity?
Just thinking about the numbers of citizens, just the family planning services, I believe we have served over 30,000+ family planning. That's just one program. Immunizations, 50,000. So tuberculosis clients, the numbers I don't have right off the top of my head. But these are services that we're providing. When you're looking at tuberculosis, we get these referrals in from private providers trying to protect the community, the spread of this disease. So it will impact this community in such a tremendous way. We think about environmental health and the services that they provide. This here is Environmental Health Week. They go out and they assess all the swimming pools, the restaurants.
Okay, so this is the department, the health score that I received, that a restaurant receives, the 90, the A.
Yes.
So if you don't receive funding, I don't know if the restaurant has an A or an F.
And I will just add to what Beverlyn said about tuberculosis. Tuberculosis doesn't discriminate. So if you're in poverty, you can get tuberculosis, and if you have wealth, you can get tuberculosis. So if we don't stop tuberculosis in a community, or any kind of an outbreak of a communicable disease, we are all at risk, all of us. And so that argument about, well, I don't use the library and I don't use public transport, it all is washed away when you look at the larger health issues.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Question.
Talk just a minute about the dental health, what you do there, and then also the flu shots in the schools.
Okay.
The scoliosis checks, all of those things that you do.
We currently have a full-time dentist on staff that can provide services for children as well as adults, and that's Monday through Friday. We go into the school system. We do the school-based flu immunizations. We can provide those flu shots to children whether they have insurance or not. We will provide those immunizations in the school. We're there checking 6th and 8th graders for scoliosis screening. The public health nurses, the public health staff is out there in the community. We're doing events, various health fairs, going to senior citizen centers, providing education, exercise, safe kids, providing parents with car seats that are the appropriate size for their children. Public health we make such an impact here in this community.
And Beverlyn, you might tell them how Macon-Bibb was not, the health department in Macon was number 2 in the state for the number of contraceptives they gave to teens. And let me tell you why that's important. A pregnant teen often doesn't finish high school. They don't finish high school. They make less money their whole life, and it impacts the lives of their children. This is a quality of life issue. Because teens feel safe coming to Beverlyn and her staff. They feel safe in that environment, and they get good health care and good health education.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Randall, also in this health services category is Navison Health. My understanding is, come on. My understanding is you guys generated a net profit of $800 million last year. Is that correct? Please clarify, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think as far as Navison Health goes, I know everybody seems to think we have all of this money, but what people don't know is that we contribute more than $50 million in indigent care. So if the health department and your doctor can't fix it and you have to go to the hospital, even if you don't have insurance, we will help. And our problem is we're not asking for the funding because I know all these other agencies are important. My issue with being zeroed out is that what that says to those other agencies that we're asking for help from. The state, we're asking them to help us with taking care of indigent here in Bibb County. The federal government, we ask for help to take care of indigent in Bibb County, yet Bibb County is not contributing. And so, and when you apply for grants, they look at your entire financial picture. And so we want to do our part. We will continue to take care of the indigent in Bibb County and the surrounding areas, but just in good faith, if you all can help us a little bit, show that Bibb County is contributing so that we can ask others to contribute and help us to continue to take care of the people that cannot, that don't have insurance. And it's as simple as that, whatever that amount may be. But I just feel like it gives us a better opportunity to get help from other agencies and from grants and from the state expanding and increasing our reimbursement if the county does show some skin in the game. And so I ask that you all reconsider the zero recommended allocations.
My friend,
Yes.
you were a state representative for a long time. That was
Was.
great deflection. Tell me about the money.
Tell you about what?
The money. I'm honestly, there's a dispute between me and one of my commissioners about the amount of revenue that you guys generate and expend each year. Like, what is your net profit?
Because we're not for profit, any money that we have over what we spent, which is very little most of the time. In fact, we're reporting a zero. We're not doing as well as we have done because of the changes in funding from the federal government.
Like $800 million is not that much to you, or?
I can't confirm that number.
Okay.
I can't confirm that number. This meeting was thrown at us shortly, so our budget folks could not attend with me. And you know, I just do relations. But as far as any profits that we do happen to make, we commit that back to the community, and that's the law, and we do that. All of these agencies that are a part of even the folks that got cut out, we do help them from our foundation side with the monies that we do have in the foundation. So, I mean, we give back totally. We give back our part, and I'm not asking for you all to match the $50 million that we spent in indigent care. I'm just saying help us to help ourselves to continue to help this community, because when we're out asking the state government, yes, I was a state representative, and had a hospital come to me and ask me for money, I want to know what's your county doing for you first. That's a good question. And that's what I'm asking. Don't show zero. That zero says if I was a state representative, that zero would have said to me, your county does not have confidence in you.
Right.
So why should we have confidence in you? Your county is not investing in you, so why should I invest in you? And it's not about Navison. It's about the people that we serve, most of which come in. And then I look at the services that we have, like autism. Everybody's talking about autism now, but we have a program and we get very little funding for it. That's something else that we give to this community. I could go on and on about programs that aren't funded, but we continue to run them because we know it's about health. If you're not healthy, you can't go to a museum, ride on the bus, or any other thing. You can't be educated. So I'm not asking for $50 million that we give in indigent care. I'm just asking that this commission, this government will show confidence in what we're doing and what we're contributing just by showing a line of contribution towards what we contribute.
All right.
And I'm willing to have our budget people come with me. Unfortunately, I just got this notice like a few hours ago, and they weren't able to be with me. And so I felt like, you know, for us to defend defend ourselves, someone needed to show from Navison. I don't do the numbers. I will admit that.
Thank you. Thank you. total healthcare spend last year, we spent $1.53 million. That would, and that's from the health department, behavioral health, and Navicent Health. That's, we agree? Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. 2018. That would be about 0.4 mils is our millage rate spend on health care in 2018. That includes the health department, behavioral health, and Navicent. I would make that as a motion at this time to increase our budget by $1.53 million, and offset by a millage rate increase of 0.4 to fund health department, behavioral health, and Navicent.
I'll second.
Further discussion on that issue? Yes.
It's not whether the wonderful men and women at Navicent Health do a great job. They do. World-class doctors, nurses, staff. Was in there recently with a family member, extremely impressed and pleased. Same goes for the health department. It's not a question of whether you don't do remarkable good works in this town. So, Ms. Randall's going to force me to give statistics that are true. In 2016, a report done by Tyler and Company that represented Navicent Health before you got there, they had a net profit of $800 million. Let's see what else we do for Navicent Health. They have 70 properties. This comes from the tax assessors and tax commissioner's office. Easy to verify. Valued at $270 million. Those 70 properties should be paying over $4 million in taxes. They don't pay any taxes for those properties. That's a nice plus. For those properties, they do not. I've got the list. You can take Carlisle Place by itself, valued at $35 million. None of those residents own their house. They don't pay any taxes there. According to that same report from Tyler and Company, these are 2016 stats. They have 400 days cash on hand. Your government has 19 days cash on hand. Think about how fragile that is. The amount of indigent care came directly. Mr. Elbert McQueen, Senior Vice President, referred me to, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he tracks indigent care. And he reported $15 million, slightly over. It's a lot of money. HCA, directly from HCA, a little over $17 million. That was a surprise to me. We don't give any of those benefits to HCA. We don't have a level playing ground. And the top two executives, and this was revealed from a Telegraph open records request, I'm happy for them. But Dr. Saunders makes $1.4 million. That's her compensation, annual compensation. Got it on an official IRS form. Telegraph can show it to you. Rhonda Perry makes $1.3 million compensation. So it's not a matter of we don't love our hospital. We love them both. We do. And they contribute tremendously to this community. We're so grateful they're here. But we do a lot, in particular for Navicent Health. All those figures are facts, from tax commissioners, to tax assessors, Tyler and Company, who was hired by Navicent Health. So it becomes a matter of, you know, we keep putting everybody back up where we were, which I wish we could. We're going to be up to 6 mills before you know it. This community is losing population. And all of my colleagues have heard me quote these stats. They come right from the U.S. Census. 2010, Houston County grew 26.5%. Monroe County grew over 20. Jones County grew over 20. Even Little Baldwin County grew 2.3, and they lost a major industry. Bibb County grew a whopping 1.1. The latest estimate, 2016, shows we're minus 1.8%. Houston County continues to grow at over 14%. Jones County's kind of flat. Monroe County continues to grow. So we have to be real careful on pricing the product. The product is what it is to live here in Macon, Georgia. And I love Macon, Georgia. I've lived here for decades. My parents are buried here. My son was born here. I love this city. I wasn't born here, but it's my hometown as far as I'm concerned. So it's a delicate balance on the price of the product. And I understand every one of these, whether you call them outside agencies or inside agencies, whatever, they're all valuable. They provide great service and amenities to this community. But how much can you afford? That's the question. How much is enough? How much should we do? I would hope that the fact that we waive or don't charge Navicent over $4 million in taxes, that would be a pretty nice benefit. It's a fact. I've got the list. So I'm not in favor of funding both of those at full force. I'm not in favor of funding Navicent because they don't need it. I am in favor of funding the health department, and I had $510,000 in my proposal.
Mr. Chair.
Moment. So in my hand, I have the Medical Center Navicent Health Analysis of Revenue and Expenses for September 30th, 2017 from their Dixon Hughes Goodman Independent Auditor Report. The hospitals is very good. I understand what happened. They billed, in terms of gross revenue, $2.4 billion worth of care. But immediately, so just like we always talk about the Blue Cross discount, like the average for Macon-Bibb County citizens is the amount that's billed because we have insurance that they deduct like 60% for the Blue Cross discount. And that's what different, and they call that charity. And of that, they knock off $1.7 billion worth of fees that they just don't do. So it looks like if you stop there for this year, it was $646 million worth of revenue. So I understand where you got the big, large 800 from. But then you have the salaries of Ms. Sanders and everybody else that works at the hospital are also expenses. And those expenses came out to $541 million, leaving them with a total cash flow margin before depreciation of $104 million. So after they got through with depreciation and corporate overhead, it left them with $42 million for FY17 is their actual net operating margin of 2017. Well, and actually that's 2016. I was reading the last year, so that's 2016 of how the hospital worked. So I understand how it happened, but this is how they do business. And again, I think Mrs. Randall's point is they are a very large corporation that does a lot of business. And while billions or hundreds of millions of dollars may seem like a lot to me as a layperson, doctors make a lot of money. The expenses that operate make a lot of, it is expensive to run a #1 trauma center. And I appreciate that. whether it's $15 million of indigent health spend or 50, I can completely respect the fact that Macon-Bibb County government, if we're going to be a partner in providing for health services, the number shouldn't be zero. 400,000 is 0.01. Is it 0.01 or 0.1 mils? 0.1. That's 0.1 mils. Well worth the cost of a partnership to me, irregardless of whether or not they netted 800 million or 40 million. I'm impressed with our relationship, and I think we should maintain it with Navicent along with the rest of our healthcare partners. Was it the 140? What did you? The 140. What's our healthcare rank? 146 of 159 counties. Yeah, I don't think we're in any position to pull back. But I understand the statement, though. Yes, sir. So, was there another statement?
Mine.
Yes, sir. Go to Mr. Tillman and then back to Ms. Lucas.
Yes. First of all, let me thank both health departments, Navicent, for what they do, and send our condolences. I know that in the last week or so, Navicent lost two of its ranking members. One was as young as 49 years of age while out in California doing business on behalf of Macon-Bibb County, and leaves a 4-year-old daughter. So send our condolences back, Ms. Randall, to your entire team. I support the health department, and I'm going to support this committee, but I would just hope, regardless of what we do with the health department, that we have a workshop or work session for the health department to come in, because entrepreneurship drives this community. And every other week, we getting all these calls from the health department, won't issue licenses to food trucks, vendors that's coming into the community trying to do business. We are making it so difficult. And so you guys have got to have a smoother process for entrepreneurs in this community. Because we see food trucks during the cherry blossom season line all up and down Mulberry. But when they're gone, the citizens that live here trying to do entrepreneurship in our county, it just seems to be so difficult. And so I'm hoping that you all will come back and share with us in a work session of how we can make this process easier, because we know that you all should be working hand in hand with planning and zoning. When I sat on planning and zoning, we reduced the vending all the way down, I think, Jim, to $200, but it's just still so difficult to get approved from the health department. And we're talking about revenue. So we've got to work through that transition, and one person just can't keep going out into the community telling people no, and now you need revenue. So I just encourage y'all to come back and do a work session, and Janice could set up something for us, and I just appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to say I know very well what the health department, the services that they provide to everybody, whether you know it or not. They are providing services. Behavioral health, River Edge. We have so many citizens who are suffering with mental illness, and for them, River Edge saves them. And of course, Navicent, I don't care how much money they make. It's not my business. What we are concerned about is showing to anyone who funds any of their research programs, anybody who is in a position to look at the local support for them and giving them money for research or whatever it is. I want Macon-Bibb to show up. And so last year, we appropriated, what was it, 451,000?
Yes.
Which really is just a drop in the bucket. It's just symbolic. It really is when you're talking about millions, tens of millions of dollars in indigent care that Level 1 Trauma Care Center provides. And this year, because there were some folks who wanted to zero it out, the chair made the motion that we would reduce that amount to $180,000. And I reluctantly seconded that because I wanted there to be something in the budget, even though those small amounts, I mean, they're just symbolic. That's what they are. And so I thought it was 20 million, but you're saying it's more, how many million for indigent care?
Somewhere between 15 and 50.
So I guess I was looking at half a year maybe, but I certainly support us restoring these amounts. And what is that figure?
1.53 million, or 1,530,000.
Okay.
All right. Well, there was already a motion and a second. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I understand that the medical center's up for sale, and the sale is supposed to be being complete. This is just asking the question, that most of the employees will be staying with the medical center, but it will be a for-profit hospital. This was something that was in the Journal of Atlanta, Georgia, within the last 30 days. So is that not true, that when medical center is not for sale?
It's not for sale, and that's incorrect.
Okay. Further questions, comments, or concerns?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
shouldn't we get, so your proposal calls to give 400,000 to Navison Health?
Sir.
400,000 to Navison Health?
Yes, sir. This
Okay.
current proposal.
So shouldn't we also give 400,000 to HCA Coliseum?
Is that an amendment?
It's a question.
I'm not opposed to it. Be honest with you. Do they provide indigent health care?
More than Navison.
All right. Yes, please take the mic. You seem very.
HCA is a for-profit corporation. It's a for-profit corporation.
And Navison is a nonprofit. Give me just a little bit more on why is that a key point of this conversation?
We're not for profit. Like I mentioned to you, if we show any profit, we have to reinvest that into the community.
Right,
We can't do what for-profit organizations can do with profits.
They have shareholders that could receive dividends and those type of things. Is how that works over there, being for profit.
When you're for-profit, you can do what you want to do with what you make. And we work under all kind of federal guidelines, state guidelines, and we don't have that freedom.
Okay.
Additional comment, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yep. They are a nonprofit. They're registered as a nonprofit in Avison. And Atrium is in the process of, it's an acquisition, buying Navison Health. Atrium happens to be a nonprofit as well, unfortunately. HCA is a for-profit hospital. That is true.
All right. So Navison is the public hospital, and that's why we do the indigent care, because they have an obligation to do that. And yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, can you give me the numbers again, just so I can write them down, please, sir?
So the 2018, the goal is to restore funding to the 2018 level, and that would actually be 1.535.
But I mean, can you break it down for me? The
millage rate?
The dollar figures before you get to the millage, please.
So that would be 451,600 for Navicent, 680,000 for the Macon-Bibb County Health Department, River Edge Behavioral Health, which we have not spoken with, 403,800. Mr. Jackson, is that you're on behalf of behavioral health or?
Why are we talking about Navison?
2 minutes. Yes, sir.
Why are we talking about Navison? We're here to talk about our city. You guys are going through their figures. Go through our figures.
They are.
You got us all off track with what they're making. Evidently, they're managing their money. They're managing their hospital. Let's manage our city. We'll spend 30 minutes talking about Navison. Now, what she's talking about is we need skin in the game when they're applying for money from the federal government. That's what it's all about. If you ever wrote a grant, they ask you, where's your income? Who else is contributing? And that affects how much money they get. So stop snowballing us, and let's get back to what we're here to talk about. You guys and ladies.
No snowballing, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
He's a former NFL player. Don't work on him.
All right. Point of order. I knew that was risky. Matter of fact, Commissioner Schlesinger has made a call for the question. I second that motion. Thank you for that. There being no further discussion on the issue, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we've successfully called for the question. The ayes have had it. All in favor of the motion to restore? Oh, all opposed?
No.
No. All right. So 3-1.
And the millage rate again was 1.53.
So no, sir. The it is 1.53 mil, 1,530,000, and that is equivalent to 0.4 mils, and that is for the purposes of restoring funding to the health department, Macon-Bibb Behavioral Health, and Navison. This motion has been properly motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Which item was that, please, sir?
The health. So I'll do that again. Let's do this vote again.
Yeah.
Everyone, we are voting now. There's been a motion and a second to restore $1,530,000 to the health department, behavioral health, and Navicent, which breaks down $451,000 for Navicent Health, $680,000 for the health department, $403,000 for River Edge Behavioral Health, and that is equivalent to 0.4 mils, approximately. Everyone understand the motion? Mm-hmm. Any further comments, questions on the motion? None. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
This motion carries 3-1.
Mr. Chairman and members of the chamber here, I need to leave. It's Friday evening, and that's my worship time. I need to be at the temple in about 10 minutes or so. So I'm going to take my leave and just encourage you all to carry on without me, and I know you will.
All right. Yes, I'll do it.
Can you just vote to do the library? Can we move?
All right.
If you do it quick, I got to be there in 10 minutes.
I move, Mr. Chair. I move, Mr. Chair, that we restore funding to the library.
All right, we're entered lightning round stage. I will make a second. Any further discussion on the library system? Is there anyone opposed to restoring funding to the library?
And what's the amount, sir?
Current 2.8 million. What I have here, which is equivalent to approximately 0.7 mils.
Would you accept a friendly motion to put it $2,600,000?
2,000,006.
Yes, and I would support it.
Yes. Yeah. So 2.6 is still approximately 0.7 mils, 0.68 or something. Anybody would like to speak to the issue? Yes, ma'am.
I gotta go.
Again, we're lightning round for stage.
Mr. Chair, I'd like us to go ahead and approve the original motion, the 2.8. And the reason is because I think that every little bit that we shave off of this jeopardizes the library's ability to function. They have certain state requirements that they have to meet, and some of this money is specifically for certain things. if we cut it, then they've got to dig around and try and figure out how they're going to pay for certain things. And I don't think we want to put them in that situation. So I would stand by my original motion to restore at 2.8.
All right. That was her
before
original
Rabbi.
motion. She did not accept it as a friendly, and it did not receive the friendly amendment, did not receive a second, nor was it friendly received. So the original motion stands at 2.8. Is there further discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, not at that amount.
All right, the motion for 2.8 carries. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
just for clarification purposes, can we go over the mills that we have thus far?
Okay, that would be great.
Well,
By my account, we have 1.95. I'm at 2.92, but I'll tell you where I'm at. I have 1.95 for recreation and parks and beautification. 0.57 for transit authority and paratransit. 0.68 for the library system, and 0.4 for health services.
Thank you, sir.
And your total? Did you total that?
Well, I have those totals would be 3 mills.
Right, I have a total of 3.6.
Yeah, I came up with the same thing the mayor came up with.
Grand total. 1.95 plus 0.57 plus 0.68 plus 0.4. Is that right?
You're right.
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
3.6.
Let's see what I missed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Thomas with planning and zoning, a little bit about our relationship. Where does the $800,000 that you worked last year, or what is the impact of zeroing out our planning and zoning?
Well, for the last 2 fiscal years, we've received $900,000 in appropriations from Macon-Bibb. And this year we asked for a similar amount with working with the mayor's finance folks. They knocked that back to $810,000. So that's a 10% cut that went into the budget that the mayor proposed. And I want to make sure that you understand what that means to us. I mean, I know that we're a line item on a much larger spreadsheet, but that $800,000 is half of our budget, half of our operating budget. So if you cut out $800,000 from our budget, we might as well just lock up and turn over the keys. Now, there are a lot of folks that would say, great, every decision that we make, they're becoming more difficult, harder and harder, and so half the people love us and half the people despise us. But my basic question is it your intent to defund planning and zoning, or is it your intent to force more fees onto those that use the service? Because that's what we're looking at. There's no way we can maintain the level of service with half our budget gone.
So, just so I'm clear, half of your budget comes from fees.
We have 3 funding sources. We have appropriations. We take in zoning and development fees. This year we're sitting right now at about $540,000 in fees that we generate, and then we get planning grants from the Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration. We do all the transportation planning for Macon-Bibb. One aspect of that is there's a required local match for that. If you don't fund us, we don't have that match.
So, assuming that I would continue assuming that if you doubled or tripled fees and business continued at the same clip, like everyone complained a little bit, but they still paid the fee at the same rate that you're anticipating, how much would you raise fees by in order to, if we didn't give you anything?
Well, we'd have to raise $900,000 in fees.
That would be like double or triple.
Well, we take in 540 now, so yeah, double at least.
Yeah, okay.
Now we're a smaller organization. We've got 14
Oh, that's
employees.
triple. That would be triple because you need 900 new.
Right.
Oh, so you have to, yeah. Okay, so on the other devil's advocate side, if you didn't raise fees and our stance was, no, we just don't want to do planning and zoning anymore, would there be anything from me turning my house into a 24-hour nightclub at that point? So I could just do what I wanted to do as a business owner at that point?
That's right. I mean, people love to hate planning and zoning, but the work that we do actually protects the property values that you're relying on to fund the government. It's through our work in directing growth. It's a total quality of life issue. So it really hurts when you call us, number one, an outside agency. We didn't just create ourselves out of midair. I mean, your predecessors created us back in 1952, and we've been doing that work all that time. So we need that $810,000 that the mayor put into our budget. Otherwise, we're just dead in the water.
Okay. Questions, comments from the committee, or? Yes, sir.
There's no denial here again that planning and zoning is a valuable part of this community. I think everybody's going to have to be cut a little bit. My number was 720. I think I just gave my sheet to Julie. I'm gonna have to leave in a minute. Well, $720,000.
In between 1.15 and 0.2. Split the difference. 0.7, 0.17.
You know, it's a shame to cripple an agency. You can nickel and dime, you know, but if you're crippling their operation, you're putting more, less effective, it will result in more work for the employees, less effective work, lowered morale when you do those kinds of things. So if we are not going to fund these agencies and that do this work and bring in significant funds, I mean, that's the same impact or worse than not funding at all, because you got the same handicaps that we're placing on these entities. I would not be in favor of going below. It has 800,000 on here. I think, what did you have, 720,000?
720.
I think that's too significant a cut, too deep a cut. And that's a reduction. 800,000 is a reduction from last year, isn't it? What was last year?
900,000.
And y'all, didn't y'all increase some fees?
We haven't increased fees in 4 years because fees become a limited return, because the higher the fees, the more you run off development. I mean, because we compete with Warner Robins and Monroe County, and a builder doesn't really care where they build. If it's cheaper to build in Warner Robins, they're going to go to Warner Robins. So it's a diminishing returns on fees.
And I'll also give another, like I'm working on a building, and the way that one of your big fees is signage. I think you charge $140 roughly per sign.
Mm-hmm.
The way the building is set up, I would have put 3 signs up. I'm not just gonna go with 2 probably because I don't want to pay the extra money. But if I would have walked in and you would have said signs cost $300, I would have just got
Right.
1. So yeah, it's
Right.
diminishing on that.
It's it has a direct impact on development, and those guys are investing in our community.
And if you told me signs cost $1,000, I would have just snuck and put up a sign at night.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right. So I understand, but the impact of just to hear it out, the impact of 100,000, if it were 700, would you going up on fees to offset that $100,000 or $200,000 shortfall? Looks like what, $5 or $10 spread across things, or 5 or 10% spread across different things, or.
To be honest, I don't know. We'd have to do the math, but I mean, there are a lot of things that we give away now that we may start charging for. That's not a fee increase, but it's a new fee.
We should do that anyway. Like, even if you get the full amount here, if you think you got a free thing that we're giving out that could generate us some new money, I'm writing this down as a note. I want to explore that.
Yeah. I mean, the 800,000 is a 10% cut. So I mean, I've got some vacant positions I won't be able to fill. So
are you still closing at 4?
No, we've already had that conversation.
Right. But but in fairness though, me asking you to stay open an extra hour, an extra 5 hours per week or 10 hours per pay period, and cutting you an extra 200,000, do those things go together?
Well, we're not closed for that hour. We're closed to the public. We're still in there working.
Okay. So
yeah.
Salary is still salary.
Yeah, we quit taking in applications at 4 o'clock, but we're still there.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought y'all were gonna reconsider that. I thought we asked our county manager to look
You did,
at that.
yeah, and we need to coordinate with Business Development Services because that's the reason we did it, because they quit taking in applications for building permits at 4 o'clock. So we were sending folks, so.
But you're both, the public needs to have access to those services up until your close of the business day, which is 5:30. That's me talking, and I thought the county manager was gonna.
If I'm understanding correctly, you agree with that?
We're fine with that.
Okay.
We just lost our quorum.
Okay.
But I would strongly recommend that when we reconvene, that we approve funding at the $800,000 level.
So that ends the lightning round of today's meeting. We are short of quorum, obligations, and in fairness, it is 6:30 on a Friday.
These.
Yes.
These other entities deserve, have my support in supporting motions to restore funding. I'm sorry that we didn't have the people to stay. They had other obligations.
Yes, and
but I fully support restoring the funding for the other entities as well.
So this has been good again. This meeting has concluded from action items. Look forward to a early Tuesday meeting. I see some hands, and I will entertain some questions because I know there is confusion. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And again, this meeting is concluding, but I am. So the situation is, it takes 3 folks to vote. I mean, it takes 3 to win. Yes, sir. It takes 3 for something to pass, and there's only 2 here, so it is what it is. But again, I am committing. Yes. I am committing to hosting another meeting early next week, prior to our Tuesday 5 o'clock, for this purpose. So be on the lookout for that press release. And again, I know that there's some other names on the speakers list. Yes, ma'am, please. What's your name? Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And I appreciate y'all staying. I appreciate what you said earlier. I just want to make the point, and I know I'm making it to the choir and in front of a small group of people, but also to these people here, that one thing about these agencies that we do, we're not employees of the city. We're doing our work at a fraction of the cost to you. We're asking you to fund 10% of the Arts Alliance budget, and you heard it's 50% of other budgets, or 20% or 25% of other people's budgets. So you're not paying our salaries, you're not paying our health insurance, you're not paying our pension plans. We don't have pension plans. I pay my own health insurance. So we are providing important services at what is actually a fraction of a cost to what it would cost the city to provide these services. I appreciate the health department speaking to the fact that cultural and arts and parks and recreation are a part of what we do. And it's part of the health of our community. And I want to point out that these outside agencies all work together. The Arts Alliance provides teachers for the camps that we were talking about at Parks and Rec. We worked with the city and are working in East Macon in conjunction with the city as well for that too. So I appreciate that y'all are working together as well. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir about this, but just wanted to have a little say that all of these other agencies that maybe people think aren't as important and that the money that we're asking for is much smaller are also doing a very important job. So
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you. And again, in fairness, Miss Jennifer Lautenheiser from the Middle Georgia Regional Library. You guys skipped over earlier. Didn't want to slight your time, but you also on our list was Darlene Murphy. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. So what I'm gonna do here, so I'll just let you know where my thought is. I still had quite a few folks that had signed up for a speakers list. I'm gonna let y'all speak in order, and others, as I said, I'm adding you to this list, Mr. Pitts and Mr. Jackson. I've also added your name, so if you just bear with me, I will allow everybody their time. Is that okay? Mr. William Dantzler. Okay. Would you like to speak before you leave?
Hey, I'd like to keep this brief. I just wanted to touch on the social impact of this. This whole ordeal is extremely embarrassing. As a person born, raised in Macon, chose to live here 30 years, I've owned a business here for 5. I want more people to move here, and I want them to be able to move here and do things here. And cuts like this just aren't gonna make it happen. And beyond that, the business owners are not going to want to move here because their employees aren't going to have the public services they need. It's infuriating, honestly. And I just really wanted to throw it out there that I really have been working to connect Macon on a larger scale, international arts community. And without these types of things going on, it's just nobody's going to want to come here, and the people that have stayed here aren't going to want to stay here. And I really do want to thank the financial committee, because y'all seem like y'all are trying your hardest with what you've been handed, and it's really ludicrous that you've been handed that, especially on such short notice. So I just would love to see this resolved, and if anybody needs a ride to the hospital, I'll be driving around in my van all weekend. So y'all just let me know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And there is a James Keith Pillow.
Mr. Chairman, we are live streaming, so the gentleman would need to go to the mic.
Okay.
The PR folks are indicating that.
Okay. All right. If you want to continue to speak from the floor, you can. But as you just, all right. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Next on our list is Mr. Andy Ambrose. And again, if anyone would like to speak, please come to the mic.
Thank you. I'm actually not going to talk a lot about the Tubman. That'll surprise and probably disappoint some people too. But what I want to talk about is I think there's a little. My concern is that people don't really understand what these outside agencies mean, and I don't mean in terms of just the services they provide, but more importantly, the quality of life and what makes a city thrive. I think that while we may disagree on the best approach to the budget, I will assume that everyone in attendance, everyone still watching on television or viewing, is interested in what is best for the community, our economy, our educational system, and our future growth. And that's important because, as I think the chair of this committee pointed out at another meeting, those cities in Georgia and elsewhere that thrive, and I can speak from experience here too as well, are those that invest in and provide a high quality of life for their citizens. And that includes strong educational opportunities for youth, a wide array of arts and cultural experiences, a thriving and dynamic city with diverse entertainment and business offerings, and educational and recreational outreach and support to underserved communities, schools, and families. The Tubman Museum and these other outside agencies, although I dislike that term, I understand where it comes from, provide all of these important contributions to quality of life, educational attainment, economic growth, and cutting funding to them will not enrich this community. It will not bring in industries or make this city, county a place where people want to come to live. Instead, it's going to create a community that businesses will not prosper, where employers will not invest in, and that people will have nothing, people will not move into, and in which housing values, and I think that's very important to keep in mind, will fall. So if you only want to do it for your own self-interest, you aren't interested in these other things, consider the impact that we have. We've already heard about the medical health impact of what these outside agencies provide. I think so. You may not use libraries, but students and families, individuals of all races, ethnicities, ages, and income levels do. You may not attend festivals and public events, but residents and visitors from all over Middle Georgia, the state, and the region do. You may not visit museums, but school groups do. Churches, families, family reunions, tourists do. You may not use buses, but I'll tell you one of the things I'm most happy about our new location on Cherry Street is we're right across from that main bus terminal, which means everybody has access. Everybody can get there. And we also try to provide things outside the museum that are free, drive-in movies, community drum circles. You may not take advantage of those. You may not come to that, but they do mean a lot to some people in the community. They do offer a safe environment in which to get an introduction to art, history, and culture.
Thank you, Mr. Ambrose. Your time has expired.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jackson, Mr. Pitts, and you are the closing speaker here.
Yeah. Let me just say this. I want to agree with everybody who's spoken about what they do and the difference they make in this community. And I would suggest to the commission, why don't we consider changing the name from outside agencies to quality of life agencies? Because that's really what it is. When you say outside agency, for a lot of our population, they see that as foreign, something that we shouldn't be involved with. But when you say quality of life, that's everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I misspoke. I have one more. Yes. And Stephen Adams. Last call. Raise a hand. All right.
I just wanted to kind of expand on what Andy Ambrose said. We should not.
Tell me your name and organization, please.
Sherry Singleton with the Museum of Arts and Sciences.
Thank you.
We should not expect local citizens and businesses to close the funding gap with gifts needed to keep the museums open. Fully privatizing academic resources that should belong to the public forces nonprofit organizations to be less accessible just to survive. Public support keeps museum admissions affordable and in many cases free for Central Georgia residents. The museum could be fiscally self-sufficient, but most Bibb County residents would not be able to afford the admission costs. They wouldn't be able to afford high quality access to great educational programming. This would result in an even greater disparity among our citizens, and that would just really be unfortunate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Adams?
Good evening. When I woke up this morning, I did not have the expectation I would be standing here before you today. You mentioned begging and groveling for money, but it is something that is very well worth it with the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority, and we are very proud of the work that we've done in the last 16 months. It has generated $700 million in new investment from private industry that has looked at Macon and felt comfortable about being here, but also the industries that have expanded. So a lot of times we see this as not so much of a cost, but an investment into our future. And we feel we've done, like I said, a good job. We're working with international companies on a daily basis. We're working with existing industries, working with some now that represent $1.5 million in property taxes in 1 year. And that's just one company that we're working with. And again, it's unfortunate that some of this uncertainty it affects decision making that goes very high up a lot of flagpoles, and working closely with Mr. Thomas's organization, I can attest to some of those interactions that these international companies have with our local offices and how much that can affect long-term decision making for where they make their next $100 million investment. So just really wanted to come and be able to say our piece. Again, the jobs are what we do, and the last 16 months we have been fortunate to assist in the creation of over 1,000 new jobs and the retainment of over 600 jobs that is equivalent to over $40 million in annual payroll to this community that is new, that was not here before. So we feel very confident that what we're doing is working, and there's 2 million square feet of industrial and warehouse space that's under construction today from some of the efforts that we've had underway. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Lady in the back. About three.
My name is Stacy Jenkins, and just as speaking as a citizen and working with youth in the community, I just want to touch on what Mr. Jackson said earlier about snowballing. Really, this is a snowball effect that occurred maybe close to 8 years ago with the beginning of the consolidation. And I feel I just want to make a statement and also want to offer advice for our current new county manager. When you start off dirty, you're going to end up with a mess. With the consolidation, it was all about politics, and it did not benefit the people at the time. What we should have done was taken advantage of that 5-year process to be able to oversee the budget, make sure that things were allocated the correct way, giving the people the correct amount of time to have the information to make the decisions when you do offer these SPLOST tax votes in special elections, to give them enough time to make the decision and to also put more responsibility on the public. What has occurred now is a person got into office, but now we're all landing up in a mess, and they're getting ready to exit out. That's all I want to say. In the future, though, with our county manager, I hope that you do hold their feet over the fire, making sure that they follow the correct process so that we won't speed up into an even bigger mess. That's all I want to say. Thank you, and I thank y'all for staying, too.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. For your time, this meeting is now adjourned.